Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. There's a lot going on energetically, and I want to break it down for you and then get into the message from the team. So first, we've got a Mars-Uranus conjunction that was really prominent on Monday, July 15th, which invokes a desire to create change. Uranus is the planet of plot twists. It's sudden change. And Mars is the planet of action. So we've got this dynamic energy starting out this week, ending with a full moon in Capricorn, this second full moon in Capricorn consecutively. And this is the bookend of the period of time that I've been talking to you about creating a change in the mind, specifically around dissolving limiting beliefs. And so we're getting a turbo boost right before we hit the final degrees of Capricorn with this full moon. And with that, we will be also hitting the final degrees of where the sun is, which is the sign of Cancer, which is very much about the internal world, doing that restock, if you will, a re-up on your internal world, going in there, feeling how it's feeling, finding the alignment, figuring out how you want to sort of redesign this internal world. And part of that was the dissolving of limiting beliefs that I've been talking about for the past few weeks. The day after the full moon in Capricorn, we go right into Leo season. So we're starting a fire sign that's all about being the center. It's all about connecting to your creativity and your passion and letting that take center stage. So we're moving out of this quiet introspective period into a more vivacious energy starting next Monday. Now during this, we've had a lot of solar weather. On July 13th, which happened to be my 17-year anniversary with my husband, I cannot believe it's been 17 years, but that was amazing. But we got an X-class flare, and we've been having moderate M-class flares kind of going off consistently. So for days now, we've been having a lot of uptick in solar weather, as well as the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance has been spiking as well, going into that beautiful white area where it's talking about the highest levels of consciousness, pulling in to the planet. So the solar weather brings it in. The Schumann resonance shows how we're absorbing it. So the solar activity that happens is the action, and the Schumann resonance is the report showing how we've reacted to that influx of energy. And we're getting those beautiful white spikes. By the way, I am doing the full moon spirit circle for the second consecutive full moon in Capricorn, happening on Sunday, July 21st at 6 p.m. Pacific time. It is a time where we will be going over everything that I've been talking about the dissolving of limiting self-beliefs. We're going to hear messages from our galactic family. Hopefully it's the Arcturians who sort of started that message. They will come through and share with us more of the message that's going on. And of course, psychic Q&A. And if that sounds like something that feels like it's in alignment with you and you'd like to join, here's the link. It will also be in the description below so that you can get a ticket and join us for that full moon spirit circle. For those of you who either aren't ready to join a spirit circle or can't join me at that time, you can join me earlier that day on Insight Timer. I have a free live event happening on Insight Timer the same day, Sunday, July 21st at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. You can join me there for free. I will also put the link down below. And during that, we will be focusing more on the spiritual block removal part. So the practices that help us release the self-limiting beliefs using EFT, or also known as tapping. So if you'd like to join me for that, the link is in the description below. You can register. It's free. You get to join me, meditate, and we will be live together. I'm so excited to do that. So please take a look. And if it feels like it's calling you, please join us. So with all of this intense change energy coming through, the team wants to let us know that we are going to be in a period of intense polarization. And again, as we go through lower fourth density, which is where we're at, we are in a sort of detox process. It helps us see the board more clearly, and we're going to experience in the world more intense events like the one we experienced. It actually happened on my anniversary. Like that, a large, intense event that will be very polarizing, and it will sort of make clear where people are hanging out in energy. Now, this isn't to say you can't move. So if you're hanging out in a particularly negative space, you can move energetically. But it is showing you where you're kind of hanging out on the timelines. And what do I mean by that? There are timelines that connect us to the 3D, the realm that we're leaving. There is still an option to live on that realm and play it out. Now, this is the realm where, again, reincarnation most likely happens because it's about making a choice. You're supposed to leave 3D and move higher within your lifetime. That's always the goal in every lifetime, is to make a choice to polarize, whether you're polarizing towards more oneness in regards to like service to others, or you're polarizing into more separation, where you are seeing yourself as separate and different and not connected to the whole. And either path is fine with source. It's wherever you want to go, you're going to end up going home either direction. Just one direction is the fast way home, and one direction is a scenic route that's got a lot of nasty scenery attached to it, because you have to learn the lessons of separation and how that creates suffering. So it's not necessarily a joyful route, but it does eventually lead you back to source, because at some point along that journey, you realize that separation isn't the path, and you ricochet back to the other direction. So it's a time of great polarization, and every third density lifetime we have is always called the choice. And if we don't polarize strong enough, we end up repeating it until we do. So we still have the option to live in a third density experience where you are not polarizing. And again, this isn't political polarizing. This is emotional, spiritual, mental polarizing. This is about whether you're leaning towards oneness and wholeness, or you believe that there isn't such a thing, that it's you for yourself. And that's the polarization I'm talking about. Whatever's happening on the world stage is only there to trigger you to make one of these decisions. Either we're all in this together, or it's every man for himself. And that's all that it's for. That's the polarizing. So it doesn't matter what side you're choosing politically, you're going to end up being stimulated to make a choice about we're in this together or we're in it alone. When we have these large polarizing external world events, and there's more to come, there's more and bigger to come. So we're not even in the thick of it yet. There will be more intense events on the levels of like 2020-ish stuff. And I don't mean the same thing that happened in 2020, just the intensity, if that makes sense. These events are meant to trigger the choice within us, and it shows you as you respond where you're kind of hanging out. If you're hanging out in this idea of separation and like, as long as it's not my side, it's your side, then I'm super happy that pain and suffering is happening. That's very low frequency. That puts you on a lower timeline where you will be opting to experience more events that test that for you. Is it okay if other people around you suffer, as long as you're not suffering? And if you're okay with that, you can see how you're slightly polarizing more into every man for himself. When you experience events like what happened last week, and more intense events than that, if your thoughts go to this is wrong for anyone to experience, and I do not like to see pain and suffering in others, you are polarizing to higher timelines. You are polarizing to the oneness, and oneness is always going to take us to the highest timeline. And this actually reminds me of something I remember hearing Dr. Wayne Dyer saying years and years and years ago. He, on his altar, so a lot of spiritual people, we will have an altar and it will represent aspects of our spiritual journey, things that help us to feel connected to our spirituality. And many times it's positive things that uplift us when we look at it. It doesn't tend to challenge you, most people's altars. But on his, he had placed a photo of Rush Limbaugh. Now, Dr. Wayne Dyer was very liberal and Rush Limbaugh was very conservative. And there was just something about Rush Limbaugh that just rubbed him the wrong way. Like he just couldn't feel harmony with this person. And so he intentionally took his photo and put it up on his altar to remind him that no matter this friction he was feeling inside, that he is still connected and that he has to consciously work harder to wish him well. And he made a point for his own spiritual growth to do so. Now, I'm not saying that we all pick the hardest person for us to love and put on our altar unless you want that challenge, unless you really want to get over this idea of separation. Because even the people that you strongly disagree with, even the people that you highly dislike, are still connected in oneness. There is no separation. And if we are coming to a place of oneness, we cannot hold that polarizing thought of everybody but you, right? Can't do it, because then we're not in oneness. We're still playing a game of separation. We have maybe limited the amount of separation we are feeling in our hearts, but it doesn't negate the fact that our heart closes towards certain people. Now, I myself, on a personal level, I've told you many times the story of this neighbor. And by the way, I do believe this works because this neighbor has moved, which feels like a blessing. But before he moved, guess what? I got to practice a lot. I got to practice this, trying to open my heart back up to a person who I felt very closed off to. Now, opening my heart to him doesn't mean I am engaging with him. It doesn't mean that I am allowing the negative things he does to go unchecked. It simply is that I'm not classifying this person as less than worthy of God's love or less than me on a human level. I might appreciate my behavior more and I might value what I do more than this person. But in the eyes of God, in the eyes of the universe, both are children. Both are one, connected to source. Just as much source flows through him as what flows through me as what flows through you. He might not utilize it. And we do see that. Everybody's got source flowing through him. Everybody has that same life. If you are animated and have life, you have source energy flowing through you. Some people choose to utilize that and tap into it consciously and tap into the wisdom that comes from that life source. And other people choose to ignore it or deny it, yet they are still given just as much source energy as you are. And so he was my Rush Limbaugh, if you will. I remember thinking about reading about what Dr. Wayne Dyer had said, because I realized there was an opportunity for me here to find peace in my heart while he existed next to me, knowing that there is nothing I can do to change his behavior. I cannot change the circumstances that he's living there, and I wouldn't go to any extreme to do so because I would not wish someone to do that to me. So I'm very clear about my actions and how they affect other people, knowing very well that if I'm okay doing it to another, then I'm saying it's okay to be done to me. I would not want someone to go to any extreme to make my life miserable. And so I did not do that with this person. But it was an opportunity for me to constantly come to a place of forgiveness and saying, I might not fully understand your behavior, but I do acknowledge that you have just as much source flowing in you as me and that we are still connected. Even if it pained me a little bit to say it, because I was more committed to keeping my heart open. Because as I have learned, I've read it, my team has said it, I have felt it, ascension, the higher timelines, the greater energy we wish to experience in this lifetime will come through an open heart. And that is why during this period of extreme polarization, of intense events, it will check you to see how open your heart is. And again, for our heart to be open, it means we accept this person or these people who feel ideally very different. Their ideology might be very different from yours, or their actions might not be something you approve of. But the open heart accepts them as part of the whole, right? And that in doing that, what your thoughts turn to is, instead of "I hope you suffer" or "I wish you were gone," the thoughts turn to "I wish you to be healed. I wish you to feel safe. I wish you to know wholeness and love." Because I truly believe if they felt those things, maybe they wouldn't change their ideology so much, but they would soften and be less reactive, because they would feel safer in the world, because they would recognize nothing opposes them, and therefore they could soften. And so during this time, what I'm saying is happening, what my team is sharing with me, is this is a type of test. And the beautiful thing about this test is it's not fixed, meaning like, okay, this intense event happened and my heart is closed to this person or these people. It's just for you to see it and make a choice about it. Does it feel right to you to close your heart? Some people are going to be like, yep, feels absolutely right. Okay, all that means is I'm choosing separation. And they might feel like, yep, that's the right thing to do. That's completely up to them. Where others might go, oh, I don't like that I closed my heart. It's just this person is really triggering. This ideology really upsets me or gets under my skin and it makes me want to close down. That's not who I am, and it's not what I'm choosing. And so therefore, how can I open myself back up? What could I do that would open my heart back up? I don't have to agree. I don't have to change my mind. I can still have my beliefs and I can let them have theirs. And I can just accept that for whatever reason they see the world differently, and yet they're still connected to me. I still wish them safety. I still wish them peace. I wish them love. I wish them to feel safe so that they could stop being antagonistic if that's how I'm perceiving it. Do you see that difference there? That we are not having to give up anything about ourselves or our position to keep our hearts open. And of course, if you took a situation like what happened last week and you flipped it and it was your side that was affected, how would you want to see others respond, those who don't agree with you? What would you want to see? The hatred and vitriol, or would you want to see the desire for the conditions to be better, that these are unacceptable conditions no matter which direction they go in? And it is a test. It is a test because there's a lot in this world that makes us feel like it's acceptable to be in a place of separation and hate, because that is the negative program that's been running. That is what they call the matrix, right? This fake idea of superiority that keeps playing out, and it's used against us to keep us divided, because this whole charade ends when we unite. And so the idea of uniting doesn't mean that we have to surrender our values. It means that we value life and we value connection and oneness at the top of those values, recognizing that there's some places where I'm going to disagree. And that's where Wayne Dyer was coming from, right? He doesn't agree with the other person's ideology, but he agreed that this person has value and is a part of him because it's a part of source. And no part of source do I wish to reject. I might not understand it. I might not agree with it. But if God, source, the universe deems it so, and it's a part of me, I accept it. And so that's what we're being asked to understand at this time. And those who are hearing this message and it resonates, that what it shows is that you are on the higher trajectory. And if it doesn't resonate, but you want it to, then it means you have the opportunity to go higher. It's an opportunity moment. You are not stopped. There is no gate that says, unless you get it right now, you're not on this train. You get to get on the train whenever you want to get on it. That's the beauty of ascension, is there isn't a limit. Sometimes when I hear other people talk about it, it's like either you got the memo and you got on the train, or you're left behind. And I just do not feel that at all in my heart. There is no leaving behind. It's like we're all reading a book. Some of us are chapters ahead of others, but you're going to get there. You are going to get there, and we're all going to get there. And it doesn't matter. There's no race. You don't get a prize if you get there first. Sometimes when you get there first, you have to wait for a minute for everybody else to catch up. So there is no better. There is no superior in this. It's simply you get it when you get it. And these opportunities that are coming, that are going to be very intense, and they're going to be very confusing or upsetting to experience for some people, are the opportunities to see, is my heart open or is it closed? Oh, some group did something to another group. Is my heart open to that group or is it closed? Like, can I accept that I don't understand? And part of Christ consciousness, that higher level of consciousness, is to try to understand. You don't have to fully get it. And it might not ever resonate for you, even if you're looking at them and you're going, okay, well, this belief system tells them that this is the right thing to do. And you might go, I understand that mentally, but I don't get it in my heart. I think that's okay. The intention here is, how do I keep my heart open in times where it is being challenged to stay open? Can I do it? And the more we can practice it in small ways, like with annoying neighbors or with the person who you get an offender bender with, can you keep your heart open to them, even if you feel like they've wronged you in some way? That maybe that wasn't their intention to wrong you. That's the outcome. But what's really going on is something else that I can't see. There's something else going on in this person that caused them to be so disconnected to the present moment that they didn't pay attention and they don't have it out for me. If my mindset can shift to that, then I am being in a place where my heart is staying open. And again, we can have an open heart and strong boundaries. So again, it's not about, I have no boundaries, do whatever you want, abuse me, use me, and discard me. No. You can have strong boundaries of what's appropriate and what's not. We're simply keeping our heart open that whatever this person that feels so opposite to us at this time is worthy of love, is worthy of forgiveness, is going through something that we can't see, we don't understand, we might not agree with, but we accept that they are a part of the whole. That's what makes the difference. That's the bigger picture. That's us getting out of pettiness and competition and othering and into the higher mentality of oneness. And with that, let's look at this week's karma card message. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message for this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel what is the guidance you're looking for this week. Are you looking for action related guidance or outcome related guidance? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this message. This message is for July 17th through July 24th. And the flavor of this message, well, got your honest, which is activated this week, and that is that game changer, plot twist energy about some kind of change coming through. interestingly, in the sign of Leo, which is also activating on Monday. We will be moving into the sign of Leo, which is about leadership and standing in our power and owning our sovereignty, in the ninth house of mental expansion. So this is about seeing the bigger picture. So a change in our sovereignty to see the bigger picture. I'm excited to read these. Spiritual action at this time: stir up the situation by using leadership as if it came from God. Yeah, you're going to have to initiate this decision on your own. If you're waiting to see other people also move into action, this is a message to let you know you're more the leader here than maybe you realize. It's going to take that internal place. It's a internal choice of how do I want to be in this world. And if you found yourself closing your heart due to recent intense events, ask yourself if that feels like it's in alignment to you. And if it doesn't feel like it's in alignment to you, the great choice is that you can change your mind. You can stir up the situation. You can take the initiative to change your mind and recognize that that choice also comes from God, right? So God meaning the oneness, right? If your intention overall is to experience oneness, there is no separation. The law is one. Everything is one. From everything you love to everything you dislike, it's all together. And if oneness is your intention, you have the power to start by changing the situation in your own heart to open it back up. Doesn't mean you agree, doesn't mean you like it. It means you accept it and you recognize that all life is granted this connection to oneness. Mental action at this time: be open to new ideas about the creativeness of the philosophies and laws involved. And I think, again, this comes from the idea of opening our heart to that which we dislike or don't agree with. It is a spiritual maturity test because it takes spiritual maturity, it takes humility to overcome your own ego's preferences. And those preferences come from within, they come from the ego. The ego represents identity. I'm not saying it's a negative thing, just stating where it lives. Identity doesn't live in source. Source is connected to everything. How could it identify as one thing if it represents all? So it takes humility to overcome our ego, our sense of identity, and accept that the law is one, right? There's oneness. I am not more worthy of God's love than my neighbor. God loves us both. Sometimes I question how, but it's my job to overcome that. My job to overcome that. Not for God to go, you know what, you are better. Here you go. Here's a special treat for you just for being my favorite. Nope, that's not ever going to happen. And until I recognize that it's my job to overcome my, I don't know if the word's prejudice or not, belief system maybe, I will not be at peace with it. I will not be at peace understanding how God shines his light on this person I don't agree with as well as me. I will always be in a place of confusion if I'm playing the otherness game. If I'm playing the game of separation, it will make me angry. It will make me upset. I will feel like it's unfair and I will suffer. This other person will not suffer. Maybe doesn't even think about me, right? It's my job to recognize and overcome my own ego, my own identity, and align with the higher principles involved. And this opportunity, and there will be many more, will come for us so that we can make these choices, because as we spiritually mature, we spiritually evolve. Physical action at this time: invent a way to do what you want and to do it in a big way. All right, as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about the message I shared with you from Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's, he's on the other side now. And I'm sure he would agree with that practice, because I think it did help him spiritually mature. But that was how he figured out how to challenge himself to keep his heart open, to remember that just because you're doing all this great spiritual work, you still have other work to do if your heart can't stay open. in some scenarios. This isn't to say your heart isn't open sometimes. It's just not always open if there are people or groups or organizations in the world that can make your heart close up and shrivel up. In fact, one of the maybe bigger ways we could do that is sort of to be curious about what we dislike or what we push back against. Again, this isn't getting to a place of, it's okay, I agree. We might not ever agree. We might not ever find that ground where we're like, yep, this is great. We might always have this feeling like, I don't understand. I don't understand how you got there. It's not to get to a place where homogenizing, because we're never going to do that. I know that we want to. Everybody has this internal like dream of this utopia where there's just one agreement. It's not going to happen. That's not how Source operates. Source is multidimensional. It has so many aspects and it wants to express them all. How would we ever be in a plane where everybody agrees on everything and there's just one thing happening? Boring. And it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Maybe when we are actually back at Source, when our own soul essence merges with Source, maybe we experience something like that because we are also everything again too. But until that point, while we are sort of having an individualized experience, not separate, but individualized, and we're an aspect of Source shining our light, please understand that we're always going to have difference because that's the variety, that's the spice of life. And if we could look at our world from a different perspective of maybe like spices or colors in the rainbow, what colors aren't worthy? What colors do you not want to see? I can't think of one that I don't want to see. I want to see them all. And I get excited when there's more, right? When someone creates more color, I'm like, whoo, there's another one, right? So I don't think we, honestly, if we think about it, we don't want to live in this homogenized one note world. We need to get comfortable with the fact that it's a spectrum and that's the beauty in it, as well as sometimes the challenge. And the more we can get together with that by being curious, again, curiosity is not a surrendering of your own values or understandings. It is simply, and in fact, I would say the opposite. It's being so secure in those that you're curious because nothing's going to change this unless I change my mind, which I have control over. So it doesn't hurt to go, why would that value be of interest to someone else? Why would that way of being happen? This is a big way for us to shift. And it gives us, again, requires a type of humility and asks for us to be more mature and grow. And maturity really does come from that place of knowing yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you are in touch with yourself, the easier it is to open your heart, which is why my work focuses so much on helping people get a sense of security. Because when I see people reacting in such a negative way, the first thing I really see is this is a very insecure person. They're scared of something. I don't know what, but what you're showing me is fear. The actions come from fear, not love, and not from a place of a sense of security. It's coming from an insecure place. So in order for us to get there with other people, we really have to get there with ourselves, which is why all the work I tend to talk about is about you and connecting with you and loving you and accepting parts of yourself that you want to reject. Because if you can do that internally, you can do it externally. And so the work always starts from here. It starts with being curious. I want to know. I don't have to like what I find, but I want to know it. And sometimes knowing does turn into a type of appreciation. You might not agree, but you can appreciate that perspective. They're asking a lot from us now because we're in the go zone, guys. We are really in the go zone. What I mean by that is the ascension ramping up. It is ramping up. It's not going to look like what we thought it would look like. We thought maybe it would look like, peace and beauty and things. And that does exist, but it's coming from a very different place of like final exams. Here's the tests. Where are you starting? Where do you want to be? Can you move yourself there? These are the tests right now. All right, now let's look at outcomes for Uranus in Leo in the 9th house of mental expansion. Spiritual outcome at this time, an unusual example of self-confidence to create spiritual values. Boom. I feel like this is just confirming what I just said. The more confident, secure in yourself you are, the stronger the spiritual values, the less you push back on being able to see that which feels separate. It feels separate. It's not. It's coming in now. Do you trust yourself enough? Are you secure in who you are enough to have the ability to evolve and spiritually mature during a very intimidating period of time? It's intense. And I know I'm being kind of vague about that. I'm being vague on purpose because I could tell you all the things I'm getting about what's coming, both from spirit and both from what I've read and learned and researched and stuff. That's not really the point. The point is, how are you handling it? How are you handling it? I want to be there for you and myself and others while we are handling this. And I want to keep connecting with spirit to help us, guide us in the direction of that higher energy of moving through these tests. So it's not really about what happens, but how we are either reacting or responding. And knowing that no matter what comes out, whether it's a reaction like a negative response or it's a conscious response, you have the power to shift that too. You're not stuck anywhere and you don't have to be in pain and suffering. At some point, that is a choice. And the more that you're moving towards this sense of oneness means you're moving in the direction of love. And as we move in the direction of love, we get the higher vision because we are connecting with higher levels of ourselves. So we begin to get that 40,000 foot view of what's going on. We take ourselves out of the details and into the bigger picture. And as we start to observe the bigger picture, we can see those big themes of like, are you choosing love or are you choosing fear? Are you choosing together or are you choosing separate? These are the bigger themes. And when you start working with those, the little details they're interesting, but they're not affecting you on the level as these big picture movements are. Mental outcome, a different way of looking at taking a chance on long range thinking or travels. Again, I feel like this time period is an opportunity for us to step back and evaluate our own, again, reaction or response and identify where it's coming from, right? If your reaction is to go into a hateful, smug, a taunting place, this shows energy that's lower. It shows a fear-based energy. If that's something that you caught yourself doing because it's just kind of a gut reaction, but it doesn't feel good, then you have the opportunity to address that and clear it. And doing that is going to change your mind to some degree, not necessarily your values, not how you're looking at things in general, but it's going to change your mind on how you're seeing situations like this and whether or not something like this is appropriate or should be okay to anyone. Because again, what we are agreeing to when we say, okay, that's fine to do that to someone, we're also kind of opening ourselves up to, it's fine if you do it to me. And that's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done to you, right? If you see someone in pain and you laugh, then you're telling the world, that's okay. It's okay when I'm in pain to laugh at me. Now, if you're like, no, that would be awful, then it's like what I say to my kids, right? Then don't behave that way to another person. If you don't want to be ridiculed or mocked or wished ill, then don't do that to another person. It's a very simple rule, and it just shows where our security is at, right? Those who mock tend to be in an insecure place. Those who don't tend to feel more secure in themselves. And they can take a step back and go, I don't agree with this person, but that's not okay. That's that mindset shift that these cards are talking about right now. Physical outcome at this time, an unexpected change resulting from the impressiveness of what is to be shared. Yeah, I feel like that's just another way of saying that what is to be shared, that understanding and knowingness of oneness. If life force energy flows into one thing, it flows into another. If everything is animated with life force, that means source is with it equally. Just like there's there's the spider you might not like, but you both have source energy flowing. Source has not chosen you over the spider. Source has chosen both. And so you're both as worthy. And again, that's that seeing, it's that little thought about that's what's going to help break down this idea of superiority or othering. Yeah, just really superiority. And again, superiority stems from insecurity. I need to be better than you because I'm afraid I'm not enough. Whereas a secure person recognizes the value of the other and doesn't need to take another person down. And the impressiveness is oneness. It's impressive, right? It's everywhere. We're a part of everything. Nothing gets rejected. When we actually come to terms with that in our heart, we find so much more peace. We find more security. We find that we're more confident. Our heart is more open. We are more benevolent. And we will be tested in this period of time to see if we choose that path or we choose the path of separation. And of course, you always have the option to change your mind no matter what. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Mwah.